The morning felt ordinary when she woke up, but something in the air felt strange quiet in a way that made her chest tighten. She sat at her kitchen table with a cup of tea, trying to shake the uneasy feeling that had been growing for weeks. Her husband had been distant lately, leaving home early, returning late, and avoiding conversations he once enjoyed. She had assumed it was stress or maybe just life moving too fast. But today her instincts whispered something else, something heavier. Later that afternoon, while searching through a drawer for a warranty paper, she accidentally knocked over a folder. A stack of documents spilled to the floor. She bent down to gather them, not thinking much of it, until she saw an unfamiliar envelope tucked inside. It had a law firm's name printed on the top. At first, she simply blinked, confused. Then she opened it. The words inside punched the air from her lungs. Petition for dissolution of marriage. She froze. Her eyes scanned the page again and again, hoping she had misread it. But the reality stared straight back at her. Her husband had already begun the process of filing for divorce, quietly, secretly, without a single discussion or warning. A rush of emotions hit her like a wave: confusion, fear, anger, heartbreak. Her hands shook so violently she had to sit down. She thought back over the past months, remembering every cold stare, every excuse, every moment he withdrew from their life together. She had ignored the signs because she believed in their marriage. Now, those signs formed a painful puzzle she could no longer avoid, but the shock deepened when she saw something else attached: a financial declaration draft. Her name appeared repeatedly, along with references to shared assets. She felt her stomach twist as she noticed certain accounts she knew she had funded long before their marriage accounts, worth hundreds of millions. He wasn't just planning a separation. He was planning a quiet financial takeover. Her heart pounded so loudly it echoed in her ears. She placed the papers back exactly as she found them, careful not to leave a trace. Her breath shook as she realized something. If he had gone this far in secret, then he likely had a plan waiting for the right moment. Maybe he was building a narrative, gathering evidence, or strategizing his exit. She wasn't sure, but she did know one thing. She was no longer safe pretending everything was normal. For the rest of the evening, she moved quietly around the house, pretending nothing had changed. Her face remained calm, but inside her thoughts raced. She replayed every conversation, every memory, every financial decision she had made in the last year. Each moment now looked suspicious. Instead of confronting him immediately, she made a choice that surprised even herself. She would stay silent. She would observe. She would gather information the same way he had done behind her back. That night, lying beside him in bed, she stared at the ceiling, her mind spinning. He slept peacefully beside her, completely unaware that she knew everything. And as the clock ticked toward midnight, she decided, before he touched even a single dollar of her hard-earned fortune, she would protect it. Every last bit of it. The real story began that night. The next morning, she woke up with a clearer mind. The initial shock had settled into a cold determination. She couldn't afford to make emotional decisions. He had filed in secret, which meant he believed she wouldn't notice until it was too late, but now she knew. And she needed to understand the full extent of his plans. She moved through her day like normal, careful not to change her routine. If he sensed anything unusual, he might accelerate whatever he was planning. She couldn't risk that. Her first step was to confirm whether the documents she found were drafts or officially filed. She called a trusted accountant, someone who had helped her family long before she ever met her husband. She didn't mention names or details. She simply asked if he could look up whether any legal actions involving her had been submitted recently. 2 hours later, she received the answer she feared. A petition had been filed, quietly, without her signature. Without her awareness, her chest tightened as she sat alone in her office. She looked around at the framed certificates on her wall, reminders of years of hard work that eventually built her $400 million fortune. Every dollar represented early mornings, long nights, sacrifices no one else had made for her. And now, someone she trusted had planned to take advantage of all of it. As she dug deeper, more clues appeared. She quietly checked their joint financial accounts and noticed subtle changes: small transfers, Unusual withdrawals, new folders she had never seen before. Nothing large enough to raise instant alarms, but enough to paint a pattern. He was preparing, and he had been preparing for months. Her heart broke again, but she reminded herself that heartbreak wasn't her priority anymore, survival was. Emotional wounds could heal later. She scheduled a private meeting with a financial advisor who specialized in asset protection. She kept her tone steady and professional, not mentioning her personal life. She asked general questions first, slowly, working toward more specific scenarios. By the end of the hour, she understood everything she needed to do in order to move, secure, or legally separate her personal assets without violating any laws. The advisor never suspected the real reason behind her questions. Later that evening, when her husband returned home, she greeted him the same way she always did. She listened to him talk about his day, watched his forced laughter, and studied how comfortable he looked hiding the truth from her. It hurt, but she kept her expression soft. Inside, a different version of her was forming, a version that could no longer be fooled or controlled. Before bed, she checked the folded divorce documents one last time. She memorized every detail. She didn't need to confront him yet. She didn't need to panic. She only needed to prep her quietly, carefully, and faster than he expected. Her plan was taking shape. And soon everything he thought he could take from her would be completely out of his reach. She woke before sunrise, her mind sharper than ever. Today would be the day she protected her wealth. Not later, not tomorrow. Today. Her fortune wasn't just money, it was her life story. Her childhood struggles, her first business failures, her eventual success, and her long journey toward financial independence. Every dollar carried a piece of her history. She began with the simplest step, relocating her personal accounts. Over the years, she had built more than one revenue stream, some of them under her name long before she met her husband. Those accounts were legally hers and always would be, but she realized that during marriage, anything could become a target. In a divorce claim, especially when the other person was quietly planning to take advantage, she contacted her long-term banker directly, someone she trusted deeply. She calmly explained that she wanted to reorganize her financial structure. She requested private asset protection, new trust accounts, and fresh investment pathways placed under a legal umbrella separate from the marriage. The banker followed her instructions without question. She had always managed her own finances meticulously, so nothing seemed suspicious. Next, she moved her business shares. Her ownership percentages were hers alone, but paperwork could become dangerous in the wrong hands. She filed updated documentation that reaffirmed her position as the sole controlling owner. She also placed certain shares into a protective trust that could not be claimed, divided, or transferred without her explicit permission. Every signature, every document, every phone call was executed with precision. By the afternoon, she had restructured nearly half of her fortune, but the most sensitive step was still ahead, the relocation of her largest investment pool. This was the heart of her $400 million fortune. It required legal support, multiple approvals, and careful timing. But she had prepared well. She contacted a legal team she trusted, separate from anything her husband knew. They guided her through the transfer process, ensuring every move was within legal boundaries and fully compliant. She remained calm, pretending to make casual business updates as if it were just another financial chore. Meanwhile, her husband remained completely unaware. He believed his plan was progressing in silence. He had no idea that she had already taken control of the narrative. By sunset, her fortune was officially secured, not hidden illegally, simply protected in structures that belonged solely to her. Very few people knew these structures even existed. She stood in her private office that evening, staring out the window as city lights flickered on. Her emotions were mixed: relief, sadness, betrayal, strength. This was not the life she had imagined, but she refused to let betrayal destroy the years of work she had poured into her future. When her husband arrived home later that night, he didn't notice the quiet victory in her eyes. He greeted her with a casual tone, completely unaware that the financial foundation he thought he could exploit was already out of his reach. She smiled gently, Giving nothing away, her fortune was safe. Now it was time to face the truth. She knew she couldn't avoid the truth forever. One evening, after days of silence and preparation, she decided to confront him, not with anger, not with shouting, but with clarity. They were sitting in the living room, the soft light from the lamp casting warm shadows across the furniture. He looked comfortable, relaxed, almost too relaxed for someone hiding such massive secrets. She took a deep breath and asked him directly, "Do you have something you want to tell me?" The question startled him. He blinked, fumbled his words, and asked what she meant. She watched his face carefully, the small shifts, the tightening of his jaw, the shallow breaths. Her tone remained calm as she explained that she had seen the divorce papers. Silence filled the room. His expression changed, suddenly, like a mask slipping. He tried to deny it at first, but she continued watching him steadily. Eventually, he stopped trying to pretend. He admitted that he had been planning to file quietly because he didn't want drama. He claimed the marriage had become distant, that they had grown apart. But the explanations felt rehearsed, shallow, like something he had prepared in advance. She didn't raise her voice. Instead, she told him she wasn't surprised anymore, that the distance, the secrets, the sudden change in behavior had all pointed to something bigger. But what hurt her most wasn't the divorce itself. It was the way he had planned to handle it, the secret filings, the hidden conversations, the quiet attempt to gain access to her finances. When she mentioned the financial documents she had found, he shifted uncomfortably. He insisted he wasn't trying to take anything unfairly, that he was simply following standard procedure. But his eyes told a different story, one that confirmed her fears. She told him the truth calmly. Her finances were now secured. Everything she had built before and during the marriage had been moved into structures he couldn't touch. For a moment, he didn't speak. He simply stared at her, realizing the power he thought he had was gone. The conversation ended quietly. No screaming, no chaos. Just two people sitting in a room, the reality between them too heavy to ignore. That night he slept in the guest room. She stayed awake for hours, reflecting on everything: the betrayal, the quiet strength she had found within herself, the future she was now forced to rebuild alone. But she knew she had done the right thing. She had protected herself. She had protected her life's work. And she had confronted the truth with dignity. The following weeks were a mixture of difficult conversations, legal steps, and emotional processing. The divorce moved forward, but now everything was out in the open. No more secrets. No more quiet betrayals. She met with her legal team regularly, ensuring each detail was handled fairly. She didn't seek revenge. She didn't try to punish him. She simply wanted closure and a peaceful separation. Her husband tried to negotiate for more than he deserved, but with the financial structures already in place, his options were limited. Eventually, he accepted the terms. Their marriage ended quietly, without spectacle, just as he had originally planned, though not in the way he expected. Emotionally, she went through waves. Some days she felt strong and determined. Other days, she felt the weight of the years they had shared. She wasn't heartless. She wasn't cold. She was simply someone who had been deeply hurt but refused to stay broken. In the months that followed, she rebuilt her life carefully. She traveled more, reconnected with people who cared about her, and returned to the work she loved. Her fortune remained secure, but what truly mattered was the peace she had regained. She learned to trust her instincts again. She learned that silence can be powerful. And she learned that protecting herself didn't make her selfish, it made her wise. Her story wasn't just about money or betrayal. It was about rediscovering her strength, understanding her value, and walking away from a situation where she was no longer respected. In the end, she didn't lose anything. She gained clarity, she gained freedom, and she gained a future she could build on her own terms. Her past was a lesson. Her future was hers again.